Black Lives Matter is beginning to experience a major backlash. In this video, we're going to take a look at how pundits are already recognizing a significant blowback swelling throughout the nation. And it's not just whites who are feeling like they're being unfairly blamed and targeted and disenfranchised. Even prominent blacks are coming out and pushing back against Black Lives Matter in their effort at remaking the nation in their own cultural Marxist image. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. I certainly hope you're all doing well. I look forward to this time with you each and every single day. If this is your first time with us, this channel, and you're looking for some daily encouragement and optimism in the midst of all the nonsense that's spewed from our left-wing Marxist media, you have found your oasis in this channel. We analyze current events, analyze some super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. We help you to think better so you can feel better, right? So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It's been an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel where each and every single day we get to celebrate together, yes, the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. And let me tease you, as I've been doing in all these videos this week, we have an exciting new announcement coming next week. You're not going to want to miss it. But we do have some changes that are coming to Turley Talks, and I think you're going to absolutely love them. So stay tuned. Let's start with our video chat question of the day. Do you see a backlash swelling against Black Lives Matter? Let us know in the comment section below. Do you think that Black Lives Matter is going too far and generating a massive backlash? Let us know what you think in the comment section below, because we are going to actually see black commentators coming out and taking BLM to task for being a cultural Marxist movement that actually in the end has little to do with equality and civil rights and actually more to do with the overthrow of our entire way of life. But before we get into it, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's Prepper's Peak new solar water heater. Now, Father's Day is approaching, and with all the lockdowns we just witnessed, this solar water heater can turn out to be his best friend. The solar water heater is an amazing device. It allows you to heat and boil water outdoors using simply sunlight. It can heat water in as little as 30 minutes, and it'll work anywhere the sun shines. You can use it to boil water, to cook noodles, rice. You could sterilize water for drinking. It's easy to clean. It could be used anywhere there's sunlight. It's really amazing. And the best part of it is that if you click on the link below, you get 15% off. So what can be better? So don't wait. Click on that link below before they sell out and get your own Patriot Sun cooker today. All right, gang. So let's dive right in here. Now, after weeks of fawning coverage from the mainstream Marxist media and constructing this notion of a new woke spring to blossom over our nation, we're beginning to see signs that the honeymoon is ending with the supposed newfound love affair with Black Lives Matter. More and more pundits are coming out and admitting that the backlash against BLM is in fact inevitable. Now, I came across this interesting piece from the Milwaukee Independent that recognizes that if history is our guide, there is indeed going to be a massive backlash against BLM and against the woke culture as a whole. Now, what we have to remember is that it's simply a fact that the Democrats have lost the white vote, okay? So as the article notes, Obama only received 43% of white votes when he defeated John McCain in 2008. And even fewer, with just 39% white votes in 2012. In fact, in 2016, Trump won the white vote, particularly whites without college degrees, to such an extent that even if blacks had come out to vote for Hillary at Obama levels, Clinton still would have lost the election. This according to the study by British political scholars Roger Eatwell and Matthew Goodwin. In fact, the Democratic Party has not won the white vote, get this, since 1964. And so if history is our guide, this new era of wokeness has already gone back to sleep. In fact, most likely it was just a dream. There was no actual wokeness among the vast majority of the population. Instead, what we're beginning to see is a sense of marginalization and indeed reverse discrimination among many whites. Armstrong Williams wrote about this the other day for The Hill. While the protests in the 1960s were about specific agenda of equality and voting access, due process, these protests and riots are more about the overthrow of the original principles of government and our economic system as a whole. And as part of that process, it's indicting the totality of our nation's laws as systematically racist and bigoted and infused with white supremacism and privilege. And so it's inevitable that whites begin to feel marginalized as they're being blamed for every evil under the sun. Now, just parenthetically speaking, there's a strategy here for that, for blaming a dominant ethnocultural people and tradition for all the evils of the world. And it's a strategy concocted by cultural Marxists such as Herbert Marcuse in the 1960s, who argued that dominant ethnic cultures in the West could effectively be overthrown by a coalition of oppressed minorities. And you hold this coalition together by what he called a policy of repressive tolerance. And repressive tolerance involves tolerating every and all minority opinion and minority group while excluding unequivocally anything conservative, anything indicative of the dominant ethnocultural group or tradition. And so the modern left has been largely successful in holding a coalition of oppressed minorities together, largely by focusing on a supposed enemy common to all oppressed minorities, which is the white male. And this is where the role of blaming white supremacy and male patriarchy for every evil under the sun becomes so important in maintaining cultural Marxist coalitions. But as Armstrong Williams, who is himself black, observes here, this strategy is not without remarkable blowback on the part of the group that's now being demonized. And Williams highlights a rather frank, if not embarrassing example of this, which involved the retired Navy captain, Naval Academy alumni board member Scott Bethman. What happened was that Bethman and his wife were sitting on their couch watching the news and discussing the recent events surrounding Black Lives Matter, watching it all unfold. Now, unbeknownst to them, as they were having this conversation, I'm not sure how it happened, but one of their smartphones was broadcasting their conversation over Facebook Live. And this retired Navy captain, he's heard saying how he got emails from the heads of his company saying that they were going to be giving their public support for Black Lives Matter and for concerns over systemic racism and the like. And this guy Bethman was all like, what the heck? Why do white people have to constantly bend over backwards for black people just because they get all offended all the time? Black people can say whatever they want and they'll never ever get fired. But white people, even, there's a hint of them saying something offensive, immediately, boom, they lose their jobs. How's that fair? Now, obviously, that was a bit embarrassing that the whole world got to hear this when he meant it for his wife, and he was using some pretty hard language. But Armstrong pointed out, what this retired naval officer said resonates with whites. And we actually have studies on that, on how this asymmetrical application of civil rights and racial privileges is creating a massive backlash among whites against non-white civil rights rhetoric and legislation. The most impressive study by far on this topic comes from the Princeton scholar Carol Swain. It was published under the title The New White Nationalism in America. It was published back in 2002, so she's way ahead of the curve here. And she made a fascinating argument. She noted that what she called the new white nationalism, or what we call more popularly today the alt-right, is different than the white nationalists of old, who understood white people to be biologically, genetically, and intellectually superior to non-whites. This is the white nationalism of the KKK or the white supremacists that marked the kind of social Darwinism so characteristic of the first half of the 20th century. So the new white nationalists are motivated by something entirely different, in that they're not interested in biological genetic differentiation. Instead, they're making the case that the current project of multiculturalism is unfairly and arbitrarily discriminating against white people and white interests on behalf of non-white constituents whose interests are taking a priority in terms of national policy. In other words, if we're a society that's built upon the political assertion that black people have political interests and Hispanics have legitimate political interests and Asians have legitimate political interests, then it only logically follows that white people have to have, legitimate political interests. And the new white nationalists are making the argument that the notion of civil rights must by definition extend to them as well. But in almost all cases, because of the repressive tolerance of cultural Marxism, it doesn't. And Professor Swain argues that this concern does in fact resonate with the wider white population. It's causing significant resentment. Backlash. This is back in 2002. Now, her work has since been corroborated late by a relatively recent study that found that more than half of white Americans believe that, quote, whites have replaced blacks as the primary victims of discrimination, close quote. And so what's so fascinating here is that Carol Swain is back right now, and she's taking on the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, take a look at this clip from an interview just a couple of nights back with Mark Levin.
Our first guest is Dr. Carol Swain. Dr. Swain taught at Princeton, where she was tenured. She was a tenured professor of political science at Vanderbilt University. She's a BA in criminal justice, a master's in law, a PhD in political science. Really remarkable woman. She's also part of the 1776 Unite group that Bob Woodson has organized, and is a part of the Black Voices for Trump Advisory Board member, and I could go on and on. Dr. Swain, you're very, very impressive. For people who don't know, give us a little bit of your background.
Well, I'm an American success story. I was one of 12 children born and raised in the rural South. We all dropped out of school after completing the 8th grade. I married at 16, had my first child by 17. By the time I was 20, I had 3 small children, and I divorced, went to a community college and got the first of 5 degrees, and I eventually became a successful university professor, earning early tenure at Princeton. I've won national prizes. I've been cited by the U.S. Supreme Court, and I love America. And if you haven't noticed, I'm Black.
So she has an astonishing backstory. She's absolutely wonderful. Now, here's her addressing specifically Black Lives Matter.
It's part of the cultural Marxist agenda against America. And many of the protesters that are out there, the corporations that are giving money, I believe that they're sincere, that they believe that racism in America is intolerable, that it hasn't improved, and that Black people live their lives in fear. That's a false narrative, and I think it's being pushed this year because of the election. And I think that the situation with George Floyd, that the media, the Democratic Party, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all of those groups had an incentive to push and fan the flames so that they ended up with what we're experiencing right now. So we are all suffering as a result of their political agenda, and it will not bring us closer together.
Now, did you catch that? All right, this is ultimately not about equality or social justice or anything like that. This is ultimately about a cultural Marxist takeover of our nation. It's politics, it's economics, it's culture. That's what's really behind the knocking down of statues and the calls to replace this systemically racist system and the like. The good news is that we are indeed beginning to see a massive backlash against all this cultural Marxist insanity. And I, for one, would love to see professors like Carol Swain lead the backlash. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on the massive backlash going against Google, trying to ban conservative websites, a backlash that's causing Google to utterly panic. They finally went too far. It's going to absolutely make your day. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.